Is it possible for Blake Lively to both be a victim and a narcissist? Let's talk about it. Someone in my last video brought up a really interesting point, and they wanted me to make a video on it, so here I am. Basically, they said that there are some narcissistic abuse survivors that are seeing Justin Baldoni as the narcissist and Blake Lively as the victim, and that they personally believe that they're not recognizing the patterns but projecting their own emotions and their bad experiences with men. Going through narcissistic abuse can really open your eyes to a lot of the illusions in the world, but I also believe that going through abuse can also cast illusions as well, especially if we are unhealed. And another person made an entire very interesting analysis about Blake Lively herself potentially being a victim of other men in Hollywood, and I thought it was such an interesting point. They said that during her come up, she probably had to deal with a lot of situations where she had to just tolerate inappropriate behavior from, her male superiors. And that during that time, she likely never really had the power to be able to do anything about it. But now that she does, she is just projecting those experiences onto Justin Baldoni because for the first time in her life, she's feeling like, I have power, I can do something now. And I do think that this is such an interesting and humanizing point because while narcissistic people, they can seem like these soulless monsters, and in some ways they are. However, we do have to consider that, they're abused and damaged people as well, oftentimes. Sometimes it's an entitlement thing. They just grew up in systems where they were completely spoiled and entitled, and I think we see a little evidence for Blake Lively for that as well. But we also have to consider that, just because someone has been spoiled in a certain way and gotten everything they've wanted in a certain way doesn't also mean that they didn't grow up with the feeling of their inner selves being neglected. And what's interesting is that, we know about the cycle of abuse. Those who are abused can also become abusers themselves, but that's what I want to do. Growing up in abuse, I want to stop the cycle, and I also want to stop the cycle of, feeding into these illusions and delusions. And I feel like the only way for that is for us to heal. So while in one way going through abuse can be a superpower, it really only is a superpower if we learn to work on our triggers and heal from them, so we're not coloring everything we see and projecting all of our experiences into the world around us and seeing things inaccurately. So yes, I want to answer the question I made in the beginning of the video. I do believe that narcissists can also be victims in certain ways as well. Sometimes severe abuse can even cause people to become narcissistic as a way to survive. This stuff gets complicated, man. And I myself, even though I've worked really hard on healing, I am not immune from having a bad take at some point. I'm sure that it'll happen. And, but I'm committed to honesty. And if that ever happens and I feel like, I was wrong, if I really feel like I see the proof of it, I will own up to it. And I feel like that's all we can ask of each other as survivors, is that we can't ask each other to have this perfect perception. But if we do the hard, honest work, I think that our perception is a superpower, and it is something so valuable to offer to the world.